Hi everyone, and welcome to this Longchen Shedra special online event. I will just give a few words of the Longchen Shedra. The Longchen Shedra with DolpoTulku Rinpoche is a 4-year study program designed to cover the core contents of Buddhist studies and based on original works by Longchen Rabjam, Lipam Rinpoche, Jigme Lingpa, among others. DolpoTulku Rinpoche explains and elucidates the Buddhist teachings, Buddhist thought, and the accompanying discourses among the philosophies and the schools of Buddhism. This uniquely structured Shedra program is highly recommended to anyone who is interested in deepening their own knowledge and understanding of Buddhism, as well as philosophical thought in general, and to ascertain clarity in their own thinking. This course is a way to deliver a package about how to develop precise understanding of the Dharma. The topic of Dharma is familiar, but then we are unclear when going into deeper levels. In this Shedra program, we can become clear about all those uncertainties based on Longchenpa's explanations. So this is the most important thing. Today, we have our first group of Longchen Shedra students who are now in their 3rd year. 4 speakers will present specific topics. Our first speaker is Birger Hansen, and he will talk about the relative truth from etymological perspective. Our second speaker is Peter Hoyts. He will speak about the ultimate truth, as pointed out by Chandrakirti and Longchen Rabjam. Our third speaker is Eva Chimalova, and she will speak about Longchenpa's view on the Shentong. Is Longchenpa's view Shentong? And our final speaker, Jampel Lhamo, will talk about the development of the Madhyamika in the Indian Buddhist tradition. But first of all, I present DolpoTulku Rinpoche himself to say a few words. Thank you.
Okay. Tashitelek everyone. So I'm very happy to be here this event. This event is one of our important events that we had a study group. It's called Longchen Shedra, and now the presenters have been studying their 3rd year, isn't it? 3rd years. So I'm looking forward to see their presentations, and I hope this will help for other people who are joining these events. And so we'll see more what the presenter will give us, highlight certain important topic, or highlight share some knowledge, or what they understood on the topic. And then I'm happy to some comment after each of topics. So I will take in my time end of these presentations. So welcome for everyone, Tashitelek. And especially very welcome all the speakers.
So to present the first speaker, Birger Hansen. The floor is yours.
Okay, many thanks. Welcome. Good afternoon, and many thanks to Rinpoche and Effie for the friendly introduction. My name is Birger Hansen. I'm one of the students of the first study group of Longchen Shedra. We began our journey through Longchenpa's precious treasury of philosophical systems some 2 years ago. We've just completed our 5-day study retreat, with which we've kicked off our 3rd year. During these 5 days, we studied Longchenpa's presentation of the Madhyamika philosophy, and today 3 of my fellow students and I will share some of the topics which we discussed. My topic is as Effie has mentioned, looking at the term relative truth from an etymological perspective. My topic is, as Effie has mentioned, looking at the term relative truth from an etymological perspective. We have a odd echo, so can please everybody who is not speaking, and that is everybody except me, go mute.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Now it's, you can, I've closed, wait a second. Now it's okay.
Okay, thanks. So, looking at the term relative truth from an etymological perspective. Let's put that a little bit into context. We're looking at the four main Indian Buddhist tenet systems or philosophical schools, Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika. All of these four schools strive to explain what reality is and how we can cognize it. As we progress through these different systems, the explanations get more complex and refined. Here, we are looking at Longchen Pa's explanation of the doctrine of the two truths, relative truth and ultimate truth, in the context of the Madhyamika tenet system. When we hear for the first time about two truths, about relative truth as opposed to ultimate truth, then maybe at first we are a little bit irritated. At least I was. Can there be more than one truth? Isn't truth always absolute and ultimate? What would the term relative truth actually mean? Isn't relative truth a contradiction in itself? And if there is such a thing as relative truth, then which other phenomenon is it related to? Luckily, we are not alone with these questions. In his book, Longchen Pa gives a very thorough explanation. In the section about Prasangika Madhyamika, he describes the nature of the two levels of truth in 6 parts, followed by an explanation how this understanding is to be put into practice. And this is very important because we are not studying all this just for the sake of it or for mere intellectual enrichment, but to improve and enrich our practice. Now, one of the 6 parts of Longchen Pa's explanation of the two truths is the derivation of the terms, or as we would call it today, the etymology, the study of the origin of the words and what we can learn about the meaning of the words from understanding their origin. Incidentally, he already gave the same explanation, phrased slightly differently, in the previous section of the text, where he explains the Svatantrika Madhyamika tenets. If we carefully read these two explanations in their respective contexts, it can help us to understand the differences between Svatantrika and Prasangika. But that's a different story. Back to etymology, understanding the words by understanding the origin. Of course, Longchen Pa didn't speak English, so his explanation is not about the etymology of the English terms which we use. But he and earlier Tibetan scholars was faced with a similar challenge like us, making sense of philosophical teachings that were originally presented in a different language. So this is about Sanskrit terms and how they are rendered in Tibetan. But don't worry, what we do now is not a Sanskrit class or a Tibetan class, and it doesn't matter whether you remember the vocabulary. What matters is the explanation, because from that explanation, we can learn something for our own understanding of the English vocabulary which we use. So let me quote from Longchenpa's book. As for the derivation of the terms, in Sanskrit, relative truth is termed Sambriti Satya. Sam means authentic, while the root vil gives the sense of obscuration. Delineating the two levels of truth states, anything by which or anywhere in which the authentic is obscured is held to be relative. Satya, which means truth, is used here in the sense that so long as one does not investigate something, it has a semblance of validity. End of quote. So, what we usually render as relative truth in English is something which has a semblance of validity and which obscures the authentic. Something which appears to be valid and true and which obscures the authentic. In the earlier section about Svatantrika Madhyamika, Longchenpa also explains the Tibetan etymology. I quote again, as for the derivation of the terms involved, the Sanskrit term samvrti means that which obscures, and the Tibetan equivalent is kunsop, falsifying everything. End of quote. And indeed, in Tibetan, kun means all, and for zop, the dictionary offers obscure, conceal, hide. So I think the Tibetans capture the meaning of the Sanskrit term quite well. The most frequently used English term is relative truth. But a quick review shows that there are translators who use other terms. In our class, we came to the conclusion that the expression all concealing truth comes very close to the original Sanskrit term and its Tibetan translation. So what do we take home from this little etymological excursion? Firstly, we see that how a term is translated has a huge impact on our understanding. That is why good translators put such a great deal of effort into selecting the right words. And I think we can really be grateful to all these translators who make the Dharma accessible to us. Secondly, we keep in mind that whenever we hear about relative truth, that this is the all-concealing truth, which obscures or conceals or hides the ultimate truth. We will hear more about ultimate truth from my fellow student, Peter. So from my side, this is it. Thank you for listening. We need to be mindful of the time, but maybe I can take one or two short questions or comments if there are any. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Birger. If there are any questions from anybody, please use the raised hand facility that Zoom has. And then we can go to our next speaker, Peter Hoytz, on the ultimate truth as pointed out by Chandrakirti and Longchen Rabjam. Thank you, Peter. Sorry, Peter. We do have a question from the live audience, and Antonio Lalo has one question.
Peter, since we are talking about etymology,
Since we're talking about etymology,
yes, do you think that using the term all concealing is somehow like a negative feeling about relative, since relative is very neutral term. Relative to the English translators used to a term which is very neutral, relative, while also in Tibetan Kyunzo is somehow negative. How to say? It involves feeling. Yes, negative feeling about it. Do you think there is this problem in translating the term? You see, it's better to use relative and stay neutral, or concealing. Maybe it hints that relative truth is inherently negative. That we're experiencing an inherently negative fake reality, I have to say, when we say Kyunzo. In fact, this is the feeling it gives meaning to the term.
Yeah, I can relate to the point that you make, and I totally agree that relative truth somehow sounds nicer than all concealing truth. There's also the problem if, somebody who doesn't study this hears the term all concealing truth, then of course, immediately the question comes up, how can a truth be concealing something? We usually associate with the term truth that it reveals something instead of concealing. So it needs explanation always. But the whole doctrine of two truths needs explanation. And then if it is about translating, then actually I think this all concealing truth captures it better, because with a little understanding that I have, my understanding is that there is an ultimate truth which we right now cannot fully cognize. And on top of this is the relative truth, our everyday truth, which of course, it works for us, but it is concealing the ultimate truth. From that perspective, I think it is fine. I think it is closest to the Sanskrit and Tibetan terms. If you look in the internet, which I'm sure you've done, you see that there are other translations in English. Also, one like Alex Berzin uses superficial truth, which has this, it is superficial as opposed to deepest truth, and it doesn't have this negative connotation of concealing or hiding. But concealing or hiding is obviously what the Sanskrit and the Tibetan term is. So I personally like that translation, but it requires explanation. I agree.
Thank you very much.
there is one other comment from a live audience.
Could the word partial truth be used?
I don't think so. I don't think it's partial means
Something is hidden.
yeah, partial means, this is a full envelope and this is a partial envelope. So the partial is a part of the complete thing. And I think what we are looking at here is the so-called relative truth or all-concealing truth is different from the ultimate truth. So I don't think the issue is we see a part of ultimate truth right now. We don't see ultimate truth. We see relative truth, which is a somewhat different thing.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Birger, and thanks to the very thought-provoking questions. So now, for the sake of time, we shall move on to our next speaker, Peter Hertz, and the ultimate truth. And let's hope this clarifies some points related to that, these questions.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for introducing me so kindly. First of all, I would like to apologize a little bit. I am presenting now for the first time in my life from an airport. So I'm not sure whether the internet is very stable. And if you hear some funny noises, which are not my words, please blame the airport. But okay, I will follow the sheets and read them with you. It's about ultimate truth. I feel very humbled because that's such a deep topic, but I will quote the masters who know a lot more about that. I will tell you a little bit what I've read and heard about the characteristics and the definitions. First, the characteristics. I'm very happy with the clear explanation on etymology as offered by Birger. The difficulty with ultimate truth is that it only can directly be realized and not via words and concepts. So it's not an easy task to use words and to explain it. In that it cannot directly be realized by means of verbal descriptions and the like, it cannot be understood by anything other than itself. So, and you all know, I guess, ultimate truth is characterized by freedom from dualistic elaborations. What does that mean? And the relative or all-concealing truth takes the form of, we heard it, obscurations. A word very often used is like veils that cover, hide the ultimate. Again, because the ultimate, which is beyond conceptual elaborations. A quote by Nagarjuna, as to what characterizes ultimate truth, it is in essence a freedom from dualistic elaboration. It cannot truly or directly be realized by means of verbal descriptions and the like. And everyone can get the slides, of course, and then you see the page where the quotes are from. Not understood by means of anything else, a state of peace, unembellished by conceptual elaboration, entailing no concepts without differentiations. These are the characteristics. And then we got some definitions during our last retreat in which relative truth and ultimate truth are described and defined and a little bit opposed to each other. Relative truth, let's read together. Relative truth is characterized by the appearance and its elaboration by the apprehender and the apprehended. So not the primal experience, the appearance, but also the thinking or apprehending and the one who is apprehending, the apprehender. And on the other side, ultimate truth is characterized by its nature, gowo, and that's free, that's direct. And when we try to use metaphors to clarify this a little bit, relative truth or all-concealing truth you can say there the concepts and elaborations are like the clouds. Certainly you have seen that before, the clouds covering the sun. And these clouds, these veils, these obscurations are separable from that truth. When you look at a metaphor for the ultimate truth, and the sun, for example, is then the symbol for that ultimate truth, that is directly perceived, also the rays. So there you see that the rays and the sun, they are inseparable. It's a direct experience. So then we have the difficulties with the words, but for example, in meditation or in realization, that's the point. And that's also why we can say we have two truths, relative and ultimate truth, but in the end, there's one that can be covered. A last slide, which I will show about that practice by Chandrakirti. Here you see, in the state of meditative equipoise experienced by one who has attained a spiritual level, a Arhat Bhumi, or even further on the level of Buddhahood, no dualistic manifestation whatsoever of the knowable can be established. So no dualism anymore of object and the perceiver of the object. That is what is known and what or who knows it. What happens now? My slide stops. Okay, I have a little technical issue now, but maybe then there it is. In these contexts, all involvement of ordinary mind and mental states has been interrupted in that state of meditative equipoise. And the realization that the true nature of phenomena is timeless awareness, which is indescribable, inconceivable, inexpressible, that is called by the Prasangikas the unconfused and authentic state of mind. I would like to, because of time, end the presentation here so that there is some room left for questions and answers. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. Just mute. Thank you. So, Peter, thank you so much for this presentation. And if anyone, either from the live audience or from the online audience, would like to ask any questions, please do so. You're very welcome to do so. Any questions from you? Rinpoche, shall we continue?
Oh, yeah.
So there don't seem to be any presentations. So Peter, you were very clear and concise with your presentation. Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Eva Chimalova, and her presentation is Longchen's View Shentong. Eva, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I hear some echo. Is it okay now? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Effie, and welcome everybody. And thank you also to my predecessors. It was wonderful to hear from you. My name is Eva Cimalova. I'm from the Czech Republic. And my task for today's presentation is to answer the following question. Okay, my presentation is stuck, I'm sorry. Is Longchen Pa's view Shentong? Firstly, I would like to explain what Shentong is, because it is an unusual term. Shentong means emptiness of other, and from the philosophical point of view, it's a different kind of explanation of emptiness. Let's see here on this slide. We can see etymological differences between terms Rangtong and Shentong. Rangtong is a compound of Rang, which means own, and Tong, which means emptiness. So we can translate it as self-emptiness or all empty of its own essence. Shentong is a compound of Sheng, meaning other, and emptiness, and Tong, meaning emptiness. So we translate it as emptiness of other. This distinction was made by Tibetan scholars. Both terms are the work of the Tibetan commentary tradition, and their introduction and expansion is mainly connected with the innovative work of Tibetan master Dolpo Gyaltsen and the scholars of the Chonang tradition. Let me introduce Dolpo Pa and his Shentong view shortly. Dolpo Gyaltsen was a great master of Tibetan Buddhist tradition Chonang in 14th century, and he is a proponent of the Shentong view, which states that ultimate reality is empty of all that is relative, changeable, and transitory. But according to Dolpo Pa, ultimate reality is not empty of its own shining and perfect essence. He was also known as the Buddha from Dolpo, or the omniscient one from Dolpo, embodied the Buddhas of the 3 times. I prepared a short biography of Dolpo Pa, but due to the time which whoever is interested can read it later, I will just mention now that Dolpo Pa was born in the Dolpo region, which is part of present-day Nepal, in the same village as our honorable teacher, Dolpo Tulku Rinpoche, who is present here. So now we can turn to Dolpo Pa's Shentong view. On this slide, we can see a few textual sources supporting Dolpo Pa's philosophy of Shentong. I would emphasize Uttara Tantra Shastra, which is one of the 5 treatises of Maitreya. In the Shastras of 5 treatises of Maitreya, we can find a synthesis of the teaching of the Yogacara school and the doctrine of the Buddha nature. The root text of both teachings were retrospectively included among the writings belonging to the 3rd turning of the Dharma wheel. And Jonangpas consider these 2 important Mahayana philosophies to be teachings with definitive meaning, which means that we can understand them literally, and Jonangpas based their Shentong view on them. This part I called 2 truths, 2 types of emptiness, and 2 modes of reality. It is Dolpo Pa's concept, which is also called Shentong Madhyamaka, and it is based on the Buddhist teaching of 2 truths. Dolpo Pa distinguishes relative truth, which corresponds with self-emptiness. It is the conventional reality of our phenomenal world, where all phenomena are empty of their own essence. Buddha taught this teaching at the 2nd turning of the Dharma wheel. And then ultimate truth, which corresponds with emptiness of other. And it means that there is an ultimate reality which is empty from all what is relative, but it's not empty of its own radiant essence, which is full of Buddha qualities. Buddha taught this teaching at the 3rd turning of the Dharma wheel. To support his view, Dolpo Pa argues that if we recognize 2 levels of truth, we cannot have the same type of emptiness in both. Firstly, it would be redundant, and secondly, According to Dolpopa, absurd consequences would follow, as we can read in his quote, that therefore what are thought to be the ultimate, profound, true modes of reality are all said to be precisely empty of their nature, and this is absurd according to Dolpopa. Here we have some characteristics of ultimate reality. According to Dolpopa, the true nature of ultimate reality is the emptiness of other. It means it is empty of all external, relative, or limiting, and it's not empty of its own being, which Sanskrit term is svabhava. It is also uncreated, unconditioned, freed from the chain of dependent arising, uncompounded, and imperishable. It has qualities of purity and radiance, unsullied by anything external, and manifests itself as Dharmakaya at the moment of awakening. According to Dolpopa, this ultimate reality is accessible only through direct meditative experience, which is called experience dharma, not through conceptual thinking. I have one quote from Dolpopa. Dolpopa states, "I bow at the feet of the masters who teach. All relative phenomena are merely the dependent origination of cause and result. But the self-arisen absolute transcends dependent origination, teaching the difference between primordial awareness that arises from conditions and what is self-arisen." This was shortly about Dolpopa's Shentong view, and now we can turn to Longchenpa's view, how it is described in our study text, The Treasury of the Philosophical Systems. On this slide, we have Longchenpa's characteristics of ultimate truth, which is characterized by emptiness, clarity, and unity of both. The essence of basic space of phenomena is emptiness, and it is by nature utterly lucid and without distortion. And all qualities of enlightenment, or Buddha qualities, are timelessly present in its natural attributes. Therefore, the ultimate reality is empty of other. It is empty of all dualistic conceptual elaboration. It is empty of all what is relative, because otherwise it would involve distortions and flaws. So this is the crucial point of Longchenpa views. I've prepared one quote from Mipam Rinpoche. Mipam Rinpoche states, "All dharmas have an entity empty. Nonetheless, their nature luminosity, the dhatu of bodies and wisdoms, is primordially spontaneous presence. They abide like the sun and its rays." So now we have to answer our original question. Is Longchenpa's view Shentong? The answer is yes. Longchenpa and Nyingmapas are type of Shentong because they postulate emptiness of other on the ultimate level of truth. But there is a difference between Dolpopa's and Longchenpa's view. This difference lies on the ontological level. Dolpopa argues that ultimate reality is empty of other, but is not empty of its own being, svabhava. And this was the reason why some critics call him an eternalist, or why he was accused that he is influenced by Hindu philosophy. Whereas Longchenpa and other Nyingmapas states that when we analyze and investigate ultimate truth through the 5 major lines of reasoning, or 5 logics, which are the way how to determine that there is no origination and no cessation on the ultimate level of truth. So when we apply these 5 logics, we come to the conclusion that ultimate reality is empty. not only empty of all relative and pure qualities, but also empty of the own being or intrinsic nature, Swabhava. Now, if you have some questions or comments, please go ahead. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for this presentation. If there are any questions, please feel free to either use the raise hand feature on Zoom for the online participants, or if we have anybody from the live group. Or you can even unmute your microphone and ask the question directly. Holger, yes, please, go ahead.
I just have a question in terms of understanding the difference between Shentong and Rangtong. So if I understand correctly, then Rangtong says that everything is, so that even the Buddha nature is empty. And that means that it is dependent on other things. And do they say something about what these other things are? So on what is then, or maybe my understanding might be flawed here. Just wonder if that's correct.
Okay. Thank you for this great question. I have the term Rangtong connected with the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. So I don't know if this teach about the Buddha nature. So I don't know exactly, I'm not sure, but from my side, I think it is connected mainly with the phenomenal world and with the self-emptiness. But that's what I can say now. Maybe someone else can clarify that.
But
Thank you,
anyway.
Holger, for the question, and thank you so much, Eva, for the answer. Anyone else would like to ask any questions? Please feel free to unmute your microphone and
I have a
ask the question directly.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't find the raise hand on my
B
screen.
trying to ask a question. Sorry, B, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So what is the relationship between the relative truth and this version of ultimate truth? What are their relationship?
Yes, they are related in terms that Shentong is postulate only on ultimate true, and for the relative true, it's still we apply self-emptiness. So all appearances on a relative level are empty from its own nature, but on the ultimate level, we postulate Shentong, emptiness of other. So the ultimate reality is empty of all what is relative, or from all what can be changed and everything. So on a relative level, we still apply self-emptiness. Is it clear?
I hear that individually. So, but what is the relationship between the two?
The relationship, I would say, it's that on the relative level we postulate one, and on ultimate level we postulate the second one. Rangtong on relative and the Shentong on. So it goes together, because we have to first get to know the emptiness of its own nature, and then we can know the ultimate reality. It's the first step. Longchen says that without cognizing without understanding these two, without understanding self-emptiness on relative level, we cannot understand the emptiness of on ultimate level. So we have to know the both, as far as I understood.
Okay, I'm just asking because the two seem separate, the way the emptiness are postulates here, because there's some other school that says that the emptiness, say like a table, the table's emptiness of its own nature is its ultimate truth.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
It's okay. It's okay. All right.
I didn't understand quite well. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions asked, and thank you, Eva, for your presentation and for answering the questions.
Thank you.
And we shall now proceed after these explanations of the relative or all-concealing truth, the ultimate and both. We shall proceed with Jampel Lhamo, our fourth and final speaker, who will talk about the development of the Madhyamaka in the Indian Buddhist tradition. Jampel Lhamo, the floor is yours. Jampel.
Good day to everyone. And I will present some thoughts on the development of Madhyamaka in the Indian Buddhist tradition. In Katyayana Sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni says, this world, Katsana, for the most part depends on duality of existence and not existence. But for one who sees the origin of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of non-existence in regard to the world. And for one who sees the cessation of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of existence in regard to the world. Thus, avoiding both extremes, the Tathagata teaches a dharma of a middle path. The term Madhyamaka means middle way, and it refers to the right view without extremes of realism and nihilism. Right view is the first in the Eightfold Path. Commonly, Madhyamaka refers to the second major Mahayana tradition. For Longchen, Madhyamaka is the most profound secret found in the teachings of the Sage, the ultimate definite view. Main points of Madhyamaka view are that all phenomena inherently lack any essence, and Madhyamikas differentiate two levels of truth. Before entering Parinirvana, Buddha Shakyamuni foretold the birth of Nagarjuna, the most famous and glorious monk who will be named Naga, will destroy nihilism and substantialism. Nagarjuna was an Indian Mahayana Buddhist teacher who lived in 2nd century. He formulated the most perfect Buddhist presentation of the nature of reality. Here you see the titles of the 6 main works on Madhyamaka of Nagarjuna. From them, Mula Madhyamaka Karika is the most important text on Madhyamaka philosophy. Now I will read some citations from Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Nothing is evident anywhere that has arisen from themselves, from other, from both, or from non-cause. Since nothing has arisen without depending arising, there is nothing that is not empty. Like an illusion, like a dream, like a gun-harvest city, whose, it is said, are things born, whose do they endure, and whose are they destroyed. I, without grasping, will pass beyond sorrow, and I will attain nirvana, one says. Whoever grasps like this has great grasping. If you think you see both destruction and becoming, then you see destruction and becoming through impaired vision. If one accepts real entities, this leads to unsupportable and harmful views based on desire and aversion, which leads to controversies. This is the cause of all ignorable views. Without it, afflictions do not arise. Therefore, having come to thoroughly understand this, one will completely refine away beliefs and afflictions. Two and a half century, 100 years later, after Nagarjuna, Indian scholar Buddha Palita wrote commentary on Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamaka Karika. In his work, he used, like Nagarjuna, Prasanga style of negation based on consequences to show that all philosophical positions are contradictory. Prasangika Madhyamaka negate all views, don't hold any view. Although they directly refute anything on which the mind fixates, they do not establish anything whatsoever in its stead. Here is a citation from Buddha Palita's work. Things do not arise from themselves because their arising would be pointless, and because their arising would be endless. Things that are already exist by the way of their own identity do not need to rise again. If they arose, even though they already existed, there would never be a time at which they were not arising. Some years later, another great Indian scholar, Baba Viveka, wrote commentary on Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamaka Karika. In his work, he used Svatranta style of argumentation. He criticized Prasangikas for not stating their view. Svatrantrika Madhyamika's view that phenomena are empty in the ultimate, but somehow exist in the relative level. For Prasangikas, all phenomena are empty. Longchen comments that Svatrantikas have not transcended the two ideologies of realism and nihilism. Whenever existence is accepted on the relative level, there is realism. Whereas non-existent is maintained to be the case on the ultimate level, there is nihilism. Baba Viveka sees reasoning about spiritual and philosophical matters as preliminary step which prepares the mind to develop a pure and not conceptual type of wisdom that sees ultimate reality. Trying to reach the great mansion of authentic nature of reality without the steps of authentic relative is not approach the wise should take. 100 years later, another great Indian scholar, Chandrakirti, wrote commentary on Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamaka Karika. He defended Prasangika Madhyamaka view. His two main works on Madhyamaka is Madhyamaka Avatara, entering the middle way, and Prasanapada, clear words. Here are some citations from his work. Emptiness do not arise causelessly, and they do not arise through causes like God, for example, nor do they arise out of themselves, nor from other, nor from both. They arise codependently. The emptiness of intrinsic reality of things is itself called by the wise as emptiness. And this emptiness also is considered to be empty of any intrinsic reality. This emptiness of that is called emptiness is accepted as emptiness of emptiness. It is explained in this way for the purpose of controverting objectification of emptiness as intrinsically real. Prasangika Madhyamika expouts the very highest view of all cause-based approaches. Having refuted all belief systems, Prasangikas do not propose their own view based on conceptual elaborations. The classification of two truths is simply convention used by ordinary people. Prasangikas itself does not cease to them as truly existence. The phenomena of a world of appearances and possibilities, whether samsara or nirvana, do not exist as real entities. In that their nature is that of an illusion. The Prasangikas do not refute the fact that they do manifest in the world, merely appearing to be produced and to cease and so forth. If one does not understand how to distinguish between two levels of truth, enlightenment will not be accomplished. If one understands this distinction well, the value is immeasurable. Now, about putting this understanding into practice. Having aroused the awakening mind of bodhicitta as the preparatory phase, one comes to decision on the basis of the view that no phenomena can be established to exist in any way whatsoever. In that context, one cultivates a mind that is free of proliferation and resolution of concepts. It is a quotation of Nagarjuna. Whose mind is completely beyond the alternatives of existence and not existence, do not abide in any fixed way. They meditate intensively on the significance of this condition, the profound state that has no frame of reference. Having rested in that state for as long as one can, one performs dedication. If there are questions,
Thank you, Jampel Lhamo. Please feel free to ask any questions, either from the online participants or the live audience.
If I may ask a question again. I'm actually
Yes,
new to all of
see,
this.
do you
I
have a
just kind of-
question?
yes, I'm new to all of this, and I kind of just stumbled upon this Zoom class. Does Longchen accept the views of Madhyamaka?
He write a whole chapter about Madhyamaka view. He was acquainted with the text Nagarjuna, Balaviveka, Chandrakirti, and he emphasized the main points of Madhyamaka philosophy. Clearly from his Visdavayutta, what are the most important tenets.
Is that a yes or a no, that Longchen accept Madhyamaka view, or maybe just part of Madhyamaka view?
Can you repeat?
So does Longchenpa accept the Madhyamaka view, or maybe just part of it?
Yes, it is the ultimate view.
So doesn't other emptiness contradictory to Madhyamaka?
What other emptiness?
Other emptiness.
What other emptiness?
Well, Longchenpa accept the ultimate truth to be a type of other emptiness. So Longchenpa accept that ultimate truth is other emptiness, and in itself also has self-emptiness. So that is not what Madhyamaka assert as what ultimate truth is. So isn't there a contradiction?
You don't have to hold to the ultimate empty level, no to the luminosity level, no to relative level. All levels are empty.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
I also have a question. I just wonder whether the Madhyamaka view can be found in the Sutra tradition as well. So are there any places in the Sutra where we can justify Madhyamaka?
Nagarjuna quoted only Katayana Sutra, but it is traditionally thought that he was acquainted with Prajna Paramita Sutras. He retrieved them from the Naga realm. And main points are in the Prajna Paramita Sutras compilations of Madhyamaka view.
Okay, thank you. I have another
Thank
question.
you, everyone. Thank you, Jampel. Thank you for the questions. And if we don't have any further questions now, I give the floor to DolpoTulku Rinpoche to say some concluding words.
I just have one question to the whole audience, maybe, or to all four presenters. Do we have time or?
Yes, we have some time.
Okay, so just a quick one. So I just wonder. So if I understand Nagarjuna correctly, his approach is more about negation. So he's saying rather about what ultimate reality not is, and not trying to describe it. And then later commentators are trying to describe ultimate reality, but have to use words that is relative or conventional terms, actually. And I just wonder how much sense does it make to describe something that is ultimate, which cannot be described as what Nagarjuna is proposing, because then at the end we are trying to describe something ultimate using relative terms, right? So just wonder what you think about that. So does it make sense to do that, or is it leading anywhere, or?
You come near ultimate truth from words, metaphors, symbols. You can come closer and closer.
But still in relative terms, right? So
So thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the presenters, Berger, Peter, Eva, and Jampel Lhamo. The presentations were very thought-provoking, very detailed and concise, and the questions were very interesting as well. So now I give the floor to DolpoTulku Rinpoche so he can give us his concluding remarks. Thank you, Rinpoche.
Hello, everyone. Tashitale. So, and especially thanks to all the presentators. I can see through your presentation, you have been work hard on this topic, and really you collected the citations and the source. All this, I'm sure it will be very helpful those who are interested, and especially, you know, it very helpful those who want to trying to find out those citations and the source. For them, it is very helpful. You know, my experience when I try to, it says when I try to find out some citation and the source, it takes a lot of time. And when somebody compiles all this source, it is really, really helpful. At least your hard work, it's going to helpful for the audience, and therefore I really appreciate. And the meaning each of your topic, I can see that you have been went through carefully, and you know through your speech I can see that. So there are some I want to put in my concept, and this now I am running this class based on Longchen's text, and the text is The Precious Treasury of Philosophical Systems. And we are selecting those chapters are very important for the lay people, you know. So we select some of these chapters, and then we I teach that, and also our reviewer and the other teachers, they will also teach. So here, the first Berger, some question they arrived that if the terminology, when we think all concerning, it's more close to Sanskrit, and Samparti Satya, when this is the which we translate in English, relative truth. So Samparti Satya, it's really close to all concerning truth, and with this terminology, there will be a lot of debate. For example, in Chandrakirti text, Timu Rangjing Tipchir Kunzob de Tekang Choma Temper Nang Tene Kunzob Tenshi Tupa Tesung de. So there he Chandrakirti explained the definition of the consoling truth, and there he explained which appears like as a delusion, or it's consoling being, what is it? hiding and other, veil to the ultimate truth. That is the, that's how he explained. And also, Sampartisatya also it holds that consoling truth, and it doesn't hold relative vocabulary of the relative truth. It doesn't hold this meaning. Then when you use relative truth, for example, when you translate like Timuranghin Tipchir Kunzobde, when you translate this text, so it explains like the, which we call relative truth, it appears like consoling the relative truth. So that's, but still for the ordinary faculties, it will appear the way it is. That we call consoling truth. He said he said like this in that. So if you put it in that way, his Buddha said relative truth, and that meaning will not, you cannot explain this meaning with the relative truth. Relative truth, it just shows that things are depending each other, and it doesn't show that it's being kind of obscurations. So it doesn't show. That's the point. Now, that's why we are saying that here we, in our class, we kind of decide that it's the consoling truth is more parallel vocabulary with the ultimate truth, you know. But relative truth means you can use it, but this word, it's not parallel of the parallel word of the ultimate truth. And now the question arises, okay, it brings some negative. The all relative consoling truths are not always being as an obstacle to cognize the relative truth. So that's why we use relative truth. We don't use consoling truth. Some of our audience says that. So here, this is the very important question you ask, and therefore, lot of, for example, Mepam Rinpoche, many they gave answer, and it says relative truth when you name, when you use, or it appears like common people, like being one of the, let's say one side, it appears like obstacles, but it doesn't mean always it does like being, what is obstacle, and then a veil, not always like that. Sometimes this all consoling truth, it's become more clarifying to ultimate truth. For example, the Mahayana Arahats, for them, the moment they say all consoling truth, it helps their realization of it helps. That's for Arahat. And even though the common people, so the truth of the ultimate truth. So sometimes it helps, but when you operate one capillaries. So here mainly we are talking about mostly about what is right in the relative truth or all concerning truth. Which one we can use more parallel vocabulary with the ultimate truth? in that case, we become more agree to the all consoling truth. Yeah, that's this one I want to clarify. And then, and there now, sorry, I don't remember, someone arise questions that in third Dharma will, which is a non-characteristic, topic is non-characteristic, is and means mainly about the topic of the emptiness. Is this Dharma will describing about Buddha nature? Someone, I thought they asked this question, isn't it? So in Longchen's view, based on Longchen's view, we say yes, because Buddha nature, when we describe with the three qualities, and one essence is emptiness, nature is the clarity, and the emptiness and clarity should be union. So that is the quality of the Buddha nature. So the second Dharma will of non-characteristic describe one part of Buddha nature. So that's why you can say yes, that teaching is describing Buddha nature. So that this I want to just put my thought. And then Helge described that there is question. Nagarjuna said ultimate truth is known beyond of the word and beyond of the concept, beyond of the logic. But a lot of commentator will explain that it's explained through the word, the ultimate truth. Is that contradicting? So you ask these questions. And here, Longchen and Mepam Rinpoche's, based on their view, I want to explain. Word always, some word you can use. Still itself is word, but it shows the which things is beyond of the extreme, and that word can describe to the ultimate truth. And this sutra, tantra, and the shastra, they said ultimate truth is beyond of the word and can't describe the ultimate truth. When they said, and that word is not all word, but that word means which word describing extreme, one of the extreme, and that you cannot describe the ultimate truth. So for example, Chandrakirti's text, Nagarjuna's, and then Longchen's, many scholars, they have a great commentary on the ultimate truth. So those words, that chapter, that Shastra can describe the Buddha ultimate truth, and we can study. And when the Jampel Lhamo says, we come more close. Yeah, you can use it. This is very good word. And other also we can understand. We can't understand ultimate truth by the study. Otherwise, Mepam Rinpoche says, even you cannot say that is ultimate truth because it's not in your mind, it's beyond of your mind. How you can say this is ultimate truth, you know? So you can say this is ultimate truth means you can describe, you can think about it. And also, if you say there is something that you even can't imagine, and that if you accept in that way, you can fall into internalism, some of the theistic view. And the other, he said, all the Shastra, Tantras and the Sutra, which is explain the ultimate truth, they become useless. So that's why his comment here, we can understand ultimate truth, and ultimate truth is through the word we can describe. That's what he's saying. And then other one of our friends says, the Buddha nature is empty by itself or empty by others. Then how it can be view of the Madhyamikas? That's the question. Here I want to put it my thought. Buddha nature itself is, Longchen explained, Buddha nature itself is not being into the one of the extremes. That's why form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So he completely explained this meaning with the Buddha nature, or he's applying this with the Buddha nature. Or if you say Buddha nature is emptiness because it's independent origination. So this is one of the logic among the 5 logic of the Nagarjunas. So through this logic, you can explain Buddha nature itself is emptiness. In that way, and Longchen view is Madhyamika view. So that's it. Now, not emptying means Buddha nature is not emptying by certain qualities. That qualities are the clarities, the kayas, and the wisdom. It's not emptying on the Buddha natures. That's why it's not emptying by itself means Buddha nature is not empty of the clarity, not empty of the kayas. That's yes. So Buddha nature. So you can explain in one. That's why in Nyingma tradition, in Buddha nature, you can carry the explanation of the third Dharma will topic, and then the second Dharma will topic. But slightly, one I want to clarify here, in the third Dharma will has a 2 sides. One, the Chittamatra Sutra, one Prasangika's Sutra. There is 2 sides. So Longchen is applying the Prasangika's view of the Sutra and based on Uttarashastra Tantras. I think that's it. So I will not, actually I took a lot of time and I aware of it, but some of these are very important, I guess. Just I put some of my words, and this can be one condition that you can go more further to study in this topic. Anyway, thank you very much. And now I pass to the Lasso.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche La. Thank you for such clear and detailed clarifications on all the points, on all the questions as well. Thank you again to the 4 presenters, and thank you again to the audience for your interest and your participation. And before we close, I would just like to make a final announcement that our 3rd group of the Longchen Shedra study group will start this August. Between the 9th and the 13th of August, we will have it will commence with a 5-day retreat. And for each month, there will be a study session with DolpoTulku Rinpoche. So you can find this information in the chat, which has just been sent, and any query can be sent to info@dolpotulku.org. Thank you very much, everyone. Tashi Delek, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your participation.